Still as a breeze, a river flowing deep. Don't wanna leave the air you breathe. Living mirrors dreams when I think of you and me. Don't wanna leave the world you see, and I will hold you down if love is still alive. It's all forgiven to my eyes. The tide has turned around. Just listen to the sound. Two hearts beating, beating time. Hey yeah, hey yeah, hey yeah, hey yeah, hey yeah. It's all forgiven to my eyes. Hey yeah, hey yeah, hey yeah, hey yeah, hey yeah. It's all forgiven. You and your wicked ways. You and your wicked ways. You and your wicked ways. Sinner of your touch, I can never feel so much. Don't wanna leave us in between. 'Cause when you lock me in, I'm in for life. Don't care, it's a cruel paradise.
The Crusades, faith, kings, and empires. The year is 1095, 1 year before the First Crusade. We have been fighting Muslims since before the 12th century. For more than 400 years, Jerusalem has been under Muslim rule. Yet for much of that time, Christian pilgrims from Europe have continued to make the long and dangerous journey to the city. But now the balance of power in the Middle East has shifted. Turkish Muslims of the Seljuk Empire have conquered vast territories. The Byzantine Empire has suffered disastrous defeats, and appeals for help are traveling westward. For the Christian kingdoms of medieval Europe, Jerusalem was no ordinary city. It was the very heart of their faith, the place where Christ was crucified, buried, and, according to Christian belief, rose again. No cathedral in Rome, Paris, or Canterbury could rival its spiritual importance. For generations, pilgrims had traveled thousands of miles simply to kneel at the Holy Sepulchre. But their pilgrimages were now in danger. For Muslims, the holiest city was and remains Mecca, towards which they direct their daily prayers, followed by Medina. By the time of the Crusades, Jerusalem stood as the most revered places in Christianity, helping explain why its possession inspired such intense devotion and conflict. Jerusalem in Muslim hands was untenable with clerics, soldiers, and ordinary people. In November of that year, Pope Urban II stands before a great crowd at Clermont in France. He calls upon the warriors of Europe to take up the cross, aid their fellow Christians in the East, and recover the Holy Land. Thousands answer the call. In 638, Christians and Jews continued to live in Jerusalem under Islamic rule. Their position was not one of equality. Non-Muslims were recognized as dhimmis, protected peoples who were allowed to practice their own religions, but only under certain conditions. In return for this protection, adult non-Muslim males were generally required to pay a special tax known as the jizya. In addition to this tax, they often faced legal and social restrictions that varied according to the ruler and the period. In some places, they could not openly display religious symbols, build new churches or synagogues without permission, bear certain arms, or hold positions equal to those of Muslims. But during the reign of the Fatimid Caliph al-Hakim bi Amr-Allah, at the beginning of the 11th century, churches were destroyed, most famously the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in 1009. Christians and Jews faced severe restrictions, confiscations of property, pressure to convert to Islam, and periods of outright persecution. Some converted under duress. Some Muslim rulers or local Islamic authorities sometimes imposed conversion under threat of punishment or death. In many cases, the financial burden of the jizya and other disabilities encouraged conversion for practical, rather than purely religious reasons. By the late 11th century, reports reaching Europe described attacks upon pilgrims, restrictions placed upon Christians, episodes of persecution, and the destruction of holy sites. Combined with the expansion of the Seljuk Turks into Byzantine territory and appeals for military assistance from Constantinople, these events helped shape the call of Pope Urban II in 1095. To many medieval Europeans, the issue was not simply one of politics or territory. Jerusalem was the city of Christ's passion and resurrection, the spiritual center of their faith. The thought that Christianity's holiest places lay under foreign rule, coupled with reports of persecution and danger to pilgrims, created a powerful emotional and religious case for the Crusades. Thus begins one of history's most famous conflicts, the Crusades. The armies that march east are not united nations, but collections of nobles, knights, and pilgrims from England, France, Germany, Normandy, Flanders, and Italy. They are motivated by faith, by duty, by the promise of spiritual reward, by family honor, and for some, by hopes of land, glory, and adventure. Their opponents are not a single united Muslim empire either. Instead, they face a patchwork of competing dynasties and rulers, often divided among themselves. After an astonishing campaign across Asia Minor and Syria, the Crusaders capture Antioch and eventually march south toward Jerusalem. In July 1099, after weeks of siege, the walls are breached. The city falls. The capture of Jerusalem becomes one of the bloodiest episodes of the medieval age. Contemporary accounts describe widespread killing of many Muslim inhabitants. For Europe, it is hailed as a miraculous victory. For the Islamic world, it becomes a catastrophe remembered for generations. Out of victory arise the Crusader states, the Kingdom of Jerusalem, the Principality of Antioch, the County of Edessa, and the County of Tripoli. To defend these fragile territories, extraordinary new military brotherhoods emerge. The Knights Templar, founded around 1119, combine the vows of monks with the profession of soldiers. Clothed in white mantles marked by a red cross, they escort pilgrims and become one of the most formidable fighting forces in Christendom. Alongside them stand the Knights Hospitaller, the Teutonic Knights, the Knights of St. Thomas, the Order of Mountjoy, the Order of the Holy Ghost, and lots of others. Many of them were devoted to caring for sick pilgrims, but some became elite warriors, defending castles and fighting on the front lines throughout the Holy Land. For decades, the Crusader kingdoms survived, but danger grew. In 1144, the Muslim ruler Zengi captured the county of Edessa, the first Crusader state to fall. Europe responds with the Second Crusade. Kings themselves now lead the armies. Louis VII of France and Conrad III of Germany march east with enormous forces. But the expedition is plagued by hardship, poor leadership, and strategic mistakes. Their attack on Damascus collapses in failure. The Second Crusade ends in disappointment. Meanwhile, an infamous figure rose within the Muslim world. His name was Saladin. Born into a Kurdish family, Saladin gradually unites Egypt and Syria under the Ayyubid Sultanate. Unlike the divided Muslim rulers faced by the First Crusade, he creates a powerful and disciplined state capable of confronting the Crusader kingdoms. In 1187, the decisive moment arrives. At the Battle of Hattin, Saladin traps the Crusader army beneath the blazing summer sun. Deprived of water and exhausted by relentless attacks, the Crusader forces are shattered. Many of their greatest nobles are captured. The relic believed to be the true cross is seized. Only months later, Jerusalem itself surrenders. Saladin generally allows many inhabitants to ransom themselves and leave, but many who cannot pay become slaves. The loss of Jerusalem sends shockwaves across Europe. Once again, kings answer the call. The Third Crusade becomes known as the Crusade of Kings. Leading it are three of Europe's greatest monarchs: Frederick Barbarossa, Holy Roman Emperor, Philip II of France, and Richard I of England, remembered forever as Richard the Lionheart. Barbarossa leads a massive German army across Anatolia, but tragically drowns while crossing a river. Much of his force turns back. Richard and Philip arrive by sea. The Crusaders lay siege to the great port of Acre in one of the longest and most brutal struggles of the medieval period. Disease, starvation, and relentless combat devastate both armies before the city finally surrenders. Throughout the campaign, the Templars and Hospitallers fight as disciplined professional soldiers beside the armies of Europe's kings. Richard soon proves himself one of history's great battlefield commanders. At Arsuf, Saladin's mounted archers harass the Crusader columns hour after hour. Under enormous pressure, the Hospitallers finally launch a charge. Richard immediately commits the rest of his cavalry, driving Saladin's forces from the field in one of the Crusaders' greatest victories. Richard advances toward Jerusalem, but ultimately decides not to attack. Even if captured, he believes the city could not be supplied or defended against Saladin's armies. Instead, diplomacy prevails. The Treaty of Jaffa leaves Jerusalem under Muslim control while guaranteeing Christian pilgrims access to its sacred sites. Richard returns to Europe. Saladin dies only months later. The Crusades do not end there. More expeditions follow. In 1229, Emperor Frederick II regains Jerusalem not by battle but through negotiation. 15 years later, it is lost again. For another half-century, the coastal Crusader states struggle to survive until 1291, when the great city of Acre falls to the Mamluks, bringing an end to nearly 2 centuries of Crusader rule in the Holy Land. They could not do alone what Israel has so far succeeded to do. For historians today, the Crusades reveal a world shaped by faith, ambition, politics, fear, heroism, and brutality alike. A world in which kings, sultans, monks, merchants, and ordinary soldiers helped forge the history of Europe and the Middle East for centuries to come. The Crusaders venerated Christian saints. St. George was perhaps the most famous military saint of the crusading period. He was the patron of soldiers and knights. Crusaders claimed miraculous appearances of St. George in battle. His red cross on a white background became strongly associated with England, although it was not exclusively English during the Crusades. By the 13th and 14th centuries, he had become England's principal patron saint. Many Crusaders believed St. George fought alongside them. St. Michael the Archangel was regarded as the commander of God's heavenly armies. He was protector against evil, patron of warriors, frequently invoked before battle. Popular throughout both Eastern and Western Christendom, many banners and churches in the Crusader states were dedicated to him. Perhaps surprisingly, devotion to the Virgin Mary, Mother of Jesus, was often even more widespread than devotion to individual military saints. Many Crusader armies carried Marian banners, dedicated churches to Our Lady, prayed for her protection before battle. Richard the Lionheart himself showed strong Marian devotion. The Knights Templar official patron was not St. George, but the Virgin Mary. The Templars were formally dedicated to the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. Their spirituality was heavily Marian. Knights Hospitaller, Knights Hospitaller, their principal patron was John the Baptist. The order began as a hospital caring for pilgrims before becoming one of the great military forces of the Crusades. Teutonic Knights. The order was also formally dedicated to the Virgin Mary. Its full title was the Order of Brothers of the German House of Saint Mary in Jerusalem. Before charging into battle, knights did not simply trust in steel. They rode beneath the cross, invoked the names of Saint George, Saint Michael, and the Blessed Virgin, and believed that the hosts of heaven rode beside them. I said earlier that the 1099 victory of Jerusalem was remembered with hatred by Muslims for generations. This is worth remembering in the context of modern jihad, and always make me remember Kipling's much later poem about fighting Muslims when he says, "When you're wounded and left on Afghanistan's plains, and the women come out to cut up what remains, just roll to your rifle and blow out your brains and go to your God like a soldier." Can you imagine the black, brutal witches scouring the wounded and dead for trinkets, gold or worse? The Crusades were not colonization. They were fights for the most spiritual city in the Christian world. For centuries, Europe knew exactly what it was. It was unapologetically Christian. Its laws, customs, festivals, morals, and identity all sprang from that foundation. You can condemn the Crusades or defend them, but nobody can deny that Europe believed in itself. Compare that to more recent years in which English people are shamed to be so, and try very hard to be anything but English, even attempting to change their religion, identity, and even gender. Today it seems that we believe in almost anything except ourselves. In the last 40 years we have watched Christianity steadily pushed out of public life, while every effort is made to celebrate and accommodate other faiths. Religious education has expanded from teaching our own history and traditions to teaching every religion under the sun. In some schools there have been verified controversies over children being encouraged to imitate Islamic prayer or participate in activities that many parents regard as acts of worship rather than education. Whether every allegation is true is almost beside the point. The fact that such incidents occur at all says something about the direction of travel. Meanwhile, Christianity is too often treated as an embarrassment, something to apologize for rather than defend. The concern is with Islamist ideology colliding with a civilization that has become so unsure of itself that it hesitates to defend its own traditions while bending over backwards to accommodate those of others. Had Britain and Europe retained a stronger Christian identity, one woven into schools, public institutions, and national life, might it have been far harder for Islamist ideology to gain confidence, root, and fester within some of our cities. A civilization that no longer values its own inheritance should not be surprised when others with stronger convictions seek to fill the vacuum. As children, many of us sat in a waxed assembly halls, listened to psalms and prayers, and sang hymns. Today, Christianity has been brushed out of most schools, and world religions are taught. Have we lost one thing to let something evil in to take its place? This is not the place to list every Muslim confrontation, complaint, or growth in political power. Europeans and even police forces watch dumbly as Muslim attack after another plays on the TV screen, usually with the identity of the perpetrator cloaked. Lots of small events never make the news, like the case of Frédéric Mortier ending up in court as a teacher at the Rosinsky High School in Angers, France, for racist comments against students. This is a man who spreads hatred, attacks the SOS Racism organization. What did Mortier do that was so bad? During a lesson at his Catholic school, the teacher said that France is a Catholic country. The director of the children's organization, Archer, Wolfgang Buscher, says, "We are facing a catastrophe." It emerges clearly from the declaration of the young Arabs cited by Busher. First, let's cut the throats of the Jews, then the gays, and finally the Christians. Says Busher, I have never experienced anything like this. A 12-year-old boy came to me and said, I hate you. We will take your country. They reject our culture, our values. Their hatred is unimaginable. Long since the Crusades, Europeans, who no longer take anything seriously, are like the citizens of Pompeii who have forgotten wisdom, ignored the dangers, and have moved ever closer to the slopes of Vesuvius.